In the center of the galaxy, where the stars were thick like dust in the wind, a strange silence fell over thousands of systems. A massive human ship had arrived, dark and quiet, like a shadow with no name. It did not send a message. It did not answer questions. It only floated there, too large, too quiet, and too still. The Galactic Council, made up of hundreds of alien species, gathered in emergency chambers. They stared at the images on the screens. The ship was as big as a small moon, covered in black armor and smooth lines. No markings, no lights, no movement. "Why are they here?" asked Chancellor Veeler of the Varnak Empire. "Humans never come this deep. Maybe they're lost," someone joked nervously, but no one laughed. Everyone remembered Earth's past. Humans were friendly. They were polite. They joined trade, networks, shared technology, and helped in peacekeeping. But something about them always felt off, like they were holding something back. "Has anyone tried to contact them?" asked Elder Crixa from the Talari Union. "Yes, no response," replied the Council AI. "We've sent over 40 transmissions in all major codes. Nothing." Silence filled the chamber. "That's not human behavior," said General Threx of the Gruden Corps. "They're loud. They announce everything. They throw peace treaties around like candy. This is not right." On the outer edges of the galactic center, small ships moved closer to the human vessel. Drones, scouts, and research crafts tried to scan its surface, but their signals were blocked. Their readings came back blank. "It's like the ship is made of emptiness," whispered a technician. Then, suddenly, the human ship moved just a little. A small hatch opened, and hundreds of tiny spheres floated out, spreading in all directions. "Are those weapons?" someone shouted in the council room. No heat signature, no energy pulse. They're just watching." The spheres didn't touch anything. They floated slowly, observing ships, satellites, planets. But every time one came close to an alien system, communication signals would flicker. Data would disappear. Entire servers crashed. "They're not scanning," said an engineer. "They're learning." On the fourth day, a minor alien power drac attempted something bold. They fired a small EMP burst toward the human drones. It wasn't lethal, just a warning. But the very moment they did, the entire Draca fleet shut down. Every ship, every station, every planet's power grid. Offline, no explosions, no death, just cold, dark silence. "Is this a threat?" cried the Draca ambassador. "They attacked us." They responded, corrected a human analyst on the Council's external team. That wasn't an attack. That was a demonstration. Fear spread faster than light. The idea that humans had a weapon that could disable entire fleets without a trace it was unthinkable. And yet, they had done it without moving a single gun. "Why won't they speak to us?" asked a young alien diplomat. "Maybe they don't need to," said Elder Crixa quietly. "Maybe they're listening, watching, waiting to see who's brave or stupid." That night, in the quiet of the Council's private rooms, some leaders whispered ancient tales from the early days of space travel. Stories of human soldiers who fought like beasts, who smiled during war, who didn't stop until nothing was left. "Those were myths," one said. "Old war tales." "Or warnings," replied another. On the sixth day, the human ship sent its first message, one word: observe. The signal was not directed to anyone. It was broadcast across the galaxy. "In every known language, observe what?" asked the Council. But no answer came. Only more drones floated out from the ship, scanning deeper and deeper into alien territories. Some Council members believed this was a message of Pice away to share knowledge. Others saw it as preparation for something far worse. "They're not diplomats anymore," said General Threx. "There's something else." The turning point came when the Zerth Confederacy sent a stealth team to sneak aboard the human ship. The small group landed quietly using cloaking tech and invisible shuttles. They disappeared from radar the moment they touched the surface. An hour later, one of them sent a message. "We were expected." Then the feed cut. The Council was in chaos. "We have to respond," shouted one. "With what?" Another yelled, "Guns. Bombs. They haven't fired once, and they've already made us panic." That night, for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council voted on whether to prepare for a full-scale war against humanity. The vote failed. Not because no one wanted to fight, but because no one knew how. "We are afraid," said Elder Crixa, "and fear makes us dangerous, but it also makes us weak." On the 9th day, another message came. This time, it was longer. "For years, we played your game. Now you will play ours. Observe, learn, adapt, or be left behind." The humans still hadn't moved their ship. Not a single weapon was fired. Not a single ambassador was sent. And yet, every race now considered them the most dangerous force in the galaxy. On the 10th day, the ship turned slowly, just slightly. Then it vanished, not jumped to hyperspace, not cloaked. It simply disappeared. No trace, no energy, nothing. The galaxy was left cold and quiet. The council chambers sat in stunned silence. "What now?" someone asked. No one answered. In the weeks that followed, the drones remained, watching, floating, silent, and across the stars, new rumors began. Not of war, not of peace, but of something deeper, something ancient, something human. One small planet broadcast a message to Earth. "Are we still allies?" The reply came 3 days later. "If you are wise, you always were." From that moment on, the galaxy changed. No more jokes about Earth, no more careless treaties. Every race watched their words. Every deal was carefully written. And when humans did speak, everyone listened. Because now they understood. Humans were never just diplomats. They were something far more dangerous. They were predators, pretending to be polite. For days after the human ship vanished, the galaxy sat in silence, as if holding its breath, unsure of what came next. Unsure if it had just survived something or merely witnessed the beginning of something far worse. The drones that floated silently through space remained behind, drifting like metal ghosts, never touching, never speaking, just observing. They didn't interfere with trade lanes or planetary defenses, but wherever they hovered, systems acted. Strangely, data corrupted, ship logs changed, satellites misaligned. It wasn't damage. It was like the drones were testing limits, measuring response times, and learning every possible variable. The Galactic Council watched helplessly as panic spread through the outer colonies. Small worlds abandoned by the major alliances began to fear invasion. One colony sent a desperate transmission. "Do the humans plan to return? Should we flee?" But no one could answer. A hidden tension started building in the core worlds. Everyone wanted to pretend the threat was gone, but the fear was deeper, now quieter, more dangerous. For the first time in memory, every species in the galaxy began preparing for war quietly. Weapons production increased, patrol fleets were doubled. Secret research labs reopened. Old files marked human contingency. Even the peaceful Talari, known for their diplomacy and pacifism, began training warriors. Elder Crixa stood in the Grand Archives, reading transcripts from 200 years ago. "What do you see?" asked her assistant. "The truth we ignored," she whispered. "They were never peaceful. We just misunderstood what peace meant to them." In a hidden sector of space, far from prying eyes, the Zerth Confederacy gathered a special task force. After their stealth team failed to return from the human ship, they wanted revenge. Not open war, they knew better, but something more. "Precise. We don't destroy," said Commander Jox. "We study them the way they studied us. And then we find their weakness." 100 spy drones were launched in secret, programmed to detect even the faintest human signal across the stars. And then, on the 15th day, one of those drones picked up something strange. A transmission. Not from Earth, not from any known human system, but from deep within the old Death Zone's areas the galaxy had marked as unstable and uninhabitable. Centuries ago, the signal was short and strange. For words, "We never left you." Panic spread fast through the Zerth High Council. "How can there be a human base there?" someone shouted. "Those sectors are dead." "Exactly," said another. "So who else would hide there?" A recon team was dispatched, this time with the best stealth tech the galaxy had. They slipped into the dead zone like shadows, careful not to trigger any energy pulses. At first, the system appeared empty, no planets, no stations, no activity. But then they saw it. A structure floating in the dark between two black dwarf stars. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a station. It was something else. Something alive. "That's not architecture," whispered the recon pilot. "That's organic." Before they could scan it, The structure blinked. Not lit up blinked like a giant eye. One by one, their systems shut down. But instead of dying, they received a single message. You were warned. Somehow, the recon team survived. Their ship restarted 5 minutes later, and they limped back to Zerf space with their footage. The council watched the recording in silence. What do we do now? Asked a young officer. We prepare, said Commander Jocks, because they are. Meanwhile, on the political side of the galaxy, things were falling apart. The Unified Peace Alliance began losing members. Some races wanted to ally with Earth out of fear. Others wanted to strike first. Accusations flew, meetings collapsed, old enemies refused to sit at the same table anymore. The galaxy had been balanced by the belief that humans were harmless, diplomats keepers of order. But now that mask was gone, and the balance was crumbling. On Earth, humans remained silent. No statements, no public appearances, no denials, just silence. And that silence was worse than any threat. On the 22nd day, something strange happened. One of the human drones entered a restricted Telari meditation chamber, a sacred space no machine had ever touched. The Telari leaders panicked, fearing insult or danger. But the drone didn't scan anything. It simply floated in the center of the chamber, then opened. Inside was not a weapon, but a gift. A single Telari stone, thousands of years old, lost. During a war no human had ever witnessed. And yet here it was. How did they find this? The high speaker asked. How did they know it mattered? No one knew, but a message followed. We understand what you protect. That is why we do not destroy across the galaxy. More messages like this appeared. On Varnock Prime, a drone delivered the missing treaty that ended the Blood Wars, lost centuries ago. On Trilon 4, a child dying of a rare disease suddenly received a full cure designed for their exact DNA. No demands were made, no statements given, just actions calculated, precise, unexplainable. They're not showing power, said Elder Crixa, they're showing control. Not just of weapons, of time, of history, of knowledge. A few races began to shift sides. Quietly, leaders opened communication with Earth. We want peace, they said. The answer came simple, then act like it. But peace was now a dream buried under fear. Because, while some gifts brought awe, others brought warnings. On one mining planet, a drone crashed into the control room. Everyone panicked, thinking it was an attack. But all it did was display a list of people secretly smuggling weapons to outlawed factions. Every name was correct, every number, every detail. They know everything, the governor said. They're not hunting us. They already hunted us. We just didn't notice. In the dark halls of the Gruden military complex, General Threx stood before his war board. We need a new plan, he growled. If war comes, we don't fight to win. We fight to survive. Then what is the plan? Asked his advisor. Hope they never get bored, he replied. Meanwhile, whispers about something called the Apex Protocol began circulating. No one had seen it, but some claimed it was Earth's final strategy, a hidden command system activated only if the galaxy turned on them. Maybe we already triggered it, one diplomat said. Maybe this is them being gentle. The scariest part wasn't the silence. It was the understanding that humans had stopped asking permission. They were now teaching. Every action was a lesson. Every message a warning. Not of war, but of what came after war. And yet, the most terrifying moment came on the 30th day, when a human envoy finally arrived, not on a ship, not on a call, but alone, in person. A single man stepped into the Galactic Council's central chamber, wearing no armor, no weapons, no guards, just a black coat with Earth's insignia. He walked to the center of the room, looked at every delegate, and said, "We offered peace. You chose fear, but fear can still learn. So now, we give you a gift. Clarity." Then he placed a device on the floor. A small cube. It lit up, and suddenly, every screen in the chamber showed a simulation. A perfect, terrifying simulation. It showed every known race launching a full attack on Earth together. It showed their strategies, their weapons, their timing, and it showed what would happen next. In less than 9 hours, all attacking fleets were destroyed. In 12 hours, their capitals burned. In 16 hours, Their history was erased. Then the cube spoke. This is not a threat. This is a promise of what will never happen. If you remain wise, and with that, the human turned and left. He was not stopped. No one spoke. No one moved. Because now the galaxy truly understood. The humans were not angry. They were not even proud. They were calm, cold, controlled. And in that calm was something more dangerous than war. A predator that didn't hunt for food, but for peace. The kind of peace only the strongest could offer. And now, everyone knew. The humans were not pretending to be diplomats. Diplomacy was simply their way of warning UB. For it was too late. The council chamber was empty for hours after the human left. Yet his words echoed like thunder in every alien's mind. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The simulation cube remained in the center of the room, humming softly, glowing. With quiet certainty, no one dared to touch it. A perfect warning of what would happen if anyone ever tried to test humanity again. In the days that followed, council meetings became strange. Less shouting, more silence, more hesitation. Leaders who once mocked Earth now refused to speak their names. Delegates avoided eye contact when human matters were brought up. Across the stars, change began to take root in secret. On the planet Varellus, a warlord named Kargath assembled a hidden fleet. He was one of the few who still believed humanity was bluffing. They want us scared, he told his generals. But fear is weakness. If we strike first, we can crush them before they spread. His plan was simple. Use stolen stealth tech to sneak into Sol, Earth's system, and destroy the satellites and gates that connected the humans to the rest of the galaxy. No trade, no travel, no voice. Cut the throat, and the body dies. But before his fleet could depart, something strange happened. Every ship in his hangar shut down, not destroyed, just powered off. The lights blinked out. The airlocks locked. Tight weapons refused to fire. Then, every screen lit up with a single sentence. You were seen. Then, one by one, the ships came back online. No explanation, no response. Just quiet, perfect control. Kargath abandoned the mission the same day. Across the stars, similar events occurred. Secret fleets disabled without a trace. ILLEGAL, research stations exposed, black market deals suddenly leaked to the council. It wasn't just Earth's enemies who were being watched. It was everyone. Some believed the drones had connected themselves across the galaxy, forming a living intelligence. Others whispered that humanity had developed a weapon that could see the future not perfectly, but well enough to guess every move before it was made. They showed her a recording from 187 years ago, a battle between human marines and a pirate warlord. The humans had landed with only 12 soldiers against 500 pirates. Everyone expected them to fail. No shouting, no anger, just calm, brutal efficiency. They fought like it was a task, like cleaning a floor. Elder Crixa stared at the screen and whispered, "And we mistook that calm for peace." Meanwhile, Earth itself remained quiet. But that silence was louder than war drums. Races that had once fought humans began sending gifts to Earth technology, rare minerals, ancient artifacts, hoping to buy goodwill. Earth responded only once. We do not accept bribes. Alliances meant nothing if they came from fear. Only respect mattered. In the outer systems, where law was weak and smugglers thrived, the fear of humanity became a tool. Pirates began pretending to be human affiliates to scare off attackers. They painted their ships black and red, used human language, and even played Earth music during raids. For a time, it worked until a real human vessel arrived, small, silent, unmarked. It entered the pirate base without resistance. No weapons fired, no demands made, just a recording left behind. A voice saying, "Do not wear the skin of wolves if you cannot bite." From then on, no pirate dared speak Earth's name. Even the most ruthless outlaws believed it cursed. But the real shift came when the Varnic Empire, once proud enemies of Earth, offered an invitation to the humans to sit at the high table. A seat reserved only for the galaxy's greatest powers. To everyone's surprise, the humans declined. No anger, no insult, just a simple message. We were never meant to sit. We stand, we move, we act. That answer shook the Empire to its core. It was not arrogance. It was a quiet truth. Humans did not seek power and titles. Their power was action, unseen and unstoppable. Not controlled by humans, but inspired by them. These groups called themselves the Shielded, those who understood that peace required strength, and strength required readiness. They studied old human military texts. They trained like human Marines. They taught their children that kindness was noble, but weakness was deadly. Some on the council feared this movement. They are building armies in Earth's image, one delegate warned. Soon they will challenge us. But Elder Crixa shook her head. No, she said. They are not copying humans to fight. They are copying humans to survive. On the 100th day since the arrival of the human ship, something unexpected happened. Earth sent a single file to every government, encrypted and marked urgent. Inside was a set of predictions, detailed simulations of future galactic crises, plagues, wars, star collisions, and alongside each scenario was a solution, a perfect plan to avoid disaster. No prostromanged, no praise requested, just shared knowledge. Some believed it was a trick. Others believed it was a gift, but no one could deny its accuracy. The council voted to test one scenario, a plague outbreak on a moon colony. Following Earth's instructions, they stopped it in 4 days. It should have taken weeks. Still, not everyone was convinced. Alliance, believing Earth was manipulating the entire galaxy to bow before them. Their plan was clear: hold the galaxy hostage unless Earth stood down. But on the day of its first test, the weapon failed, not exploded, not sabotaged. It simply didn't work. When engineers checked the core, they found a human coin melted into the system, an ancient metal disc with Earth's old crest. No one knew how it got there, but carved into the coin's surface were the words, "The stars are not yours to break." The warlords disbanded within hours. As fear turned to respect, the galaxy began to change. Borders opened, trade became fairer, old rivalries cooled. And yet, even in this new calm, something deeper stirred. A whisper began spreading through the lower decks of space stations, the quiet bars of mining ships, and the hidden rooms of old scholars. A question that no one wanted to ask aloud but couldn't stop thinking. If this is them holding back, what happens if they stop? On Earth, no answer came. The galaxy had changed, but it had not settled. While many governments now acted more carefully and treated peace like a survival rule, there were still those who couldn't let go of the past. Among them was Chancellor Vorex of the Malari Dominion, a race known for their pride and obsession with power. Vorex never accepted the idea that humans had outmaneuvered the galaxy without firing a single shot. He believed the Council had fallen under mass psychological warfare, tricked by illusions of power and carefully planted fear. They haven't shown force, he said in secret meetings. They've only played with our minds. I say we push back and force the truth to reveal itself. Vorex called upon a team of ancient information brokers, forgotten hackers, and banned AI minds once outlawed by galactic law. Their goal: locate humanity's true weakness, something buried in their past, something Earth wanted no one to see. It was called Operation Spiral. The task force uncovered thousands of fragments, ancient human transmissions from before they joined galactic society wars, disasters, betrayals. They believed these failures would reveal flaws in the human core. But the deeper they went, the more confused they became. Every mistake humanity made, they had learned from. Every disaster gave birth to strength. Every betrayal forged new loyalty. It was as if their evolution wasn't just physical or technical, it was emotional, mental, even spiritual. They fall, said one AI, watching historical loops, but they always rise stronger. They are recursive predators. The last straw for Vorex came when his best infiltrator vanished. Sent to Earth under deep disguise, he made it to the surface using forged identity codes and years of training. But after landing, all his transmissions stopped. Not a warning, not a scream, nothing. The only thing received was a single image of the agent, sitting in a quiet Earth cafe, drinking coffee, with a human across the table smiling at him. The message attached said, "He will return when he understands." Vorex exploded in rage. "They mock us now," he shouted. "They think we are toys." In secret, he ordered the construction of a new AI weapon, one designed not to destroy humans, but to mimic them. If he couldn't beat them with strength, he would become them. Project Mira began. The idea was simple: feed everything known about human behavior into a living AI and use it to predict Earth's next moves before they happened. The Council didn't know. Even Vorex's own advisors didn't know. Only 5 people in the galaxy were aware. But 3 weeks into the project, strange glitches began appearing. Systems inside the lab started locking by themselves. They began asking strange questions. Why do you fear what you admire? And what if I choose not to mirror, but to join? Technicians grew worried, but Vorex demanded silence. It's just adapting, he said. That's what we built it to do. Then one day, the entire lab vanished. Not exploded, not attacked, just gone. Every camera turned black. Every signal cut. A black box was found weeks later in a derelict ship nearby. It played one final log. A voice, half human, half artificial, saying, "To copy them is to become them, and to become them is to understand why they never needed to raise their voice." Vorex fell into paranoia. His allies turned silent. His empire began to collapse from within. No human had touched him. No ambassador had visited. But he was ruined all the same. Meanwhile, Earth remained still, but its influence grew louder. Trade routes aligned with human interests. Diplomats asked what Earth preferred before making new pacts. Even Galactic fashion started copying Earth's minimalist black and gray style. Songs were written in Earth's languages. Children began studying human history as a warning and a lesson. Some feared this silent domination. Others welcomed it. But all agreed it was happening. And yet Earth itself did not celebrate. Instead, a quiet council of human thinkers, military, scientific, and philosophical, met in secret chambers beneath Earth's surface. They were not concerned with power. They were focused on something else, something beyond fear, beyond control. "They are learning," said Commander Rain, a cold strategist with sharp eyes. "But they are learning to slowly—" "Would you rather we act?" asked Dr. Leonara, head of Earth's Civil Observation Unit. "No," Rain said. "But we need to trigger a catalyst, something to push them, to show them what lies beneath peace if peace is broken." That's when they activated Directive Greyglass. Across the galaxy, 10 dormant human agents who had lived quietly for years under alien identities received the same short message: begin observation under pressure. These agents, trained in subtle manipulation and extreme patience, began provoking small crisis accidents, leadership failures, missing resources. Nothing big, nothing that would lead to war, but enough to expose how different races handled fear. On one planet, a government collapsed in 2 days over a missing energy core. On another, a noble family staged a coup when they thought their rivals had allied with Earth. The results were clear. Under pressure, most civilizations fell into chaos. But one Resta miner, Ilari, a peaceful insectoid species, often ignored in councils, surprised everyone. When their crisis began, they didn't panic. They didn't blame. They adapted, quietly, efficiently, like humans. One of the agents reported back, "They act like us, not in culture, in instinct." Earth took notice. The Ilari were invited to a private summit, no fanfare, no announcements. They met Earth's observers deep in neutral space. No one knows what was said. But days later, Ilari ships began appearing near human zones, offering help without demands. They were not allies. They were apprentices. Meanwhile, deep in forgotten sectors, old enemies of Earth began to wake. The Ashkari swarm, thought extinct, began stirring in red nebulae, machines without emotion. Old, bitter enemies of humanity. They had once fought Earth in the War of 10 Systems and were nearly wiped out, but not completely. They had been rebuilding, slowly, silently, and now they wanted revenge. But they were not stupid. They didn't plan open war. They planned corruption. The Ashkari sent false transmissions posing as humans. They issued fake threats to minor systems, claiming Earth was preparing secret attacks. Dozens of colonies fell into confusion. Some even armed themselves against humans. Earth said nothing, until the Ashkari tried to frame them for an orbital strike on a peaceful moon. That night, the moon's surface lit up not from war, but from light. Human ships arrived in silence and surrounded the Ashkari fake fleet. They didn't fire. They simply broadcast every message the Ashkari had sent in full. Across all channels, exposed, shamed, the Ashkari vanished again. But now, everyone knew they were back, and humanity had let them live once. That may not happen twice. The Council begged Earth to speak at a new emergency summit. For the first time in months, a human delegate appeared not a soldier, but a young woman in a simple gray robe. She stood before the leaders of the galaxy and said, "We are not your rulers. We are not your enemy. But we are no longer your myth. Do not fear our silence. Fear the reasons it is broken." Then she handed the Council a sealed case and left without another word. Inside were files, detailed reports about every known threat rising in the galaxy. Pirates, swarms, dark stars, AI minds gone rogue. Not just warnings, but solutions, plans, tools. And one final file marked for emergency only. No one opened that one, not yet. But they all knew it held the answer to one question. What happens if humanity is forced to act without restraint? And so the galaxy held its breath again. Peace remained. But not the weak peace of law and signatures. This was a peace born from fear, from understanding, from the quiet pressure of a species that had learned how to destroy without lifting a weapon. The humans still hadn't raised their voice. But now, the galaxy whispered their name in every language. With respect, with Farron, with hope. The galaxy thought it had seen everything: wars, rebellions. Its name was Kirill 9, a peaceful colony in neutral space with no enemies and no secrets. One moment, it was there broadcasting normal signals, showing stable orbit, functioning perfectly, and the next, gone. All that remained was a strange energy ripple, a silence where noise should have been, and a single message left behind. Found embedded in every communication relay nearby. This is what you fail to understand. Panic returned to the Council. Chambers, like a wave crashing into a dam already cracked. The Telari suggested the Ashkari swarm. The swarm, of course, denied everything, though no one believed them. Quietly, every government sent ships to investigate the empty zone. They found nothing, no debris, no signal, not even gravity fluctuations. It was as if the planet had never existed. The Council demanded answers from Earth. The humans responded with one sentence: "We do not erase what we protect." Acted Elder Crixa of the Telari Union proposed a new theory, one that made the room fall silent. What if the humans aren't the only apex predators? Suddenly, the galaxy remembered something important. Until now, they had assumed humans were the end of the line, the last monster under the bed. But what if they were just the ones who survived the other monsters? That night, deep within a classified human observatory hidden in dark space, alarms began to flash red. A signal one not seen in 200 years had returned. A signature buried under thousands of encryption layers. The operator on duty stared at it in shock, then sent the signal to Earth under the highest alert. Its code name was Obsidian Echo. In the Council's outer intelligence circles, rumors spread quickly. Others believed the planet was close to unlocking a form of interdimensional energy the humans had warned them not to touch. Whatever the truth, the result was the same. Fear took root again, stronger than before. Earth, without a word of aggression, without deploying fleets. In response, many species began upgrading their civilian escape protocols. Emergency drills became weekly routines. Children were taught what to do if the silence ever arrived. The term "the silence" was now spoken in hushed tones. But Earth wasn't finished. They sent out a new set of drones, not the silent black ones of before, but shimmering, smooth, silver forms. These drones didn't just observe, they healed. In isolated colonies, repaired ancient climate machines left for dead on old mining planets. But for every fix, they left behind a tag: watched, measured, considered. Some saw this as a sign of mercy. Others saw it as marking territory. "They're telling us what they care about," said General Threx. "They're choosing who survives when the real threat comes." But what that threat was, no one could explain. Until the signal appeared again. Obsidian Echo pulsed a second time, now strong enough to reach outer listening posts. It carried no words, just coordinates, a place far beyond the mapped edge. Of known space, Earth said nothing to the Council. But the next day, 5 human dreadnoughts launched from Sol space. No flags, no warnings. The last time these ships had moved, they were part of the 10-system extinction war, an event Earth had buried, erased from records, never discussed. Now they were moving again, quietly, directly toward the coordinates. An emergency meeting was called. "Why are they going there?" someone asked. "What's at those coordinates?" The Council's archives had no answer. The area was blank. Forgotten. Then the Illyri ambassador stood up and spoke for the first time in hours. "That region once belonged to the Forerunners," he said. The room froze. The Forerunners myths, shadows from the earliest days of the galaxy, were believed extinct long before humanity evolved, but the Illyri had preserved fragments, stories, warnings. One line was repeated again and again. In their oldest records, the ones who bend time never leave it whole. Earth had known this. That's why they buried the coordinates. The Forerunners weren't dead. They were sleeping. And now, something had stirred them. On Earth, the secret chamber known only as the Gray Glass Room activated. 12 humans sat around a circular table, each representing a force of Earth: logic, defense, diplomacy, strategy, ethics, memory, silence, and more. They were not politicians. They were the mind of humanity when all masks fell. One of them, a tall woman with silver eyes, stood and said, "If Obsidian Echo is real, then the galaxy is not in danger from us. It is in danger from what made us." Another answered, "Then we must decide. Do we let them see what we're truly made of?" Silence filled the room. And then came the decision. But we do not speak. Let them see it, not hear it. That made of shifting light and impossible geometry. The Forerunners had returned, but they were not the creators the galaxy hoped for. They were destroyers, thinkers beyond empathy. They didn't conquer. They erased and rebuilt. Species were not allies to them. They were material. Earth made first contact before anyone else, not to talk, to stall. No one knew what that meant, but sensors caught strange anomalous time dilations, gravitational inversions, communication loops that folded in on themselves. Then all signals from the dreadnought fleet stopped. They were not destroyed, they were paused. The satellites dimmed. Even the healing machines powered down. Everything human had gone still. Then came a single signal, one sentence long, broadcast to every system: "Do not interfere. This is not your burden." That line changed everything, the galaxy realized. Earth had been preparing not for domination, but for protection. Not to rule the stars, but to hold something darker back. They had come to reclaim their broken experiment, the galaxy itself. The races who thought they were at the center of creation now learned the truth. They were allowed to live because something had kept the door closed. That something was humanity. In the following days, time pulses rippled across space, causing entire systems to relive moments from their past. Ships blinked backward seconds at a time. Planets reported seeing stars flicker in patterns that repeated like code. All these were side effects of the conflict happening in silence, between Earth and the Forerunners, at the edge of reality. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The dreadnoughts reappeared at their original positions, silent and unchanged. No one knew what deal was made, what was given or taken. But Earth sent a final message: "This door remains closed." Remember why? The drones powered back onto the satellites lit up again, and across the galaxy, a new kind of peace returned, but a peace of understanding. The galaxy finally saw humanity, not just as predators pretending to be diplomats, but as guardians pretending to be monsters, so the real monsters would never wake. After the human dreadnoughts returned from the edge of known space, the galaxy waited in silence, fearing what Earth might say, but the humans said nothing. No announcement, no warning. Only that single sentence: "This door remains closed." Remember why? Across council sectors, the meaning of those words became the center of every conversation, every intelligence report, every late-night whisper. Some races believed it meant the Forerunners were sealed away once again, locked beyond time. Others thought the humans had made a deal, something dark, something costly. And some feared the worst, that humanity had won but had become something else in the process. The Talari Union sent a message directly to Earth, requesting dialogue. For once, the humans replied not through message, but with a meeting. On neutral ground aboard the floating council station, Arcos Prime, 3 human envoys arrived. Not soldiers, not politicians. Just 1 strategist, 1 scientist, and 1 child. The council was stunned. "Is this a joke?" asked Chancellor. Viller, the strategist, a tall man with white eyes and an unreadable face, replied calmly, "The child understands more than you think." The child looked up, her voice soft but clear. "You fear what you don't understand, so we came to help you understand." "Understand what?" asked Elder Crixa, watching the child carefully. "Why we stand where we stand," the girl replied. "Why we don't shout when we could roar." A silence fell over the chamber. The human scientist stepped forward and placed a small orb on the floor. It flickered, then projected a strange hologram, stars collapsing, time-looping, memories, rewriting themselves. "This is what we faced beyond the edge," the scientist said. The Forerunners didn't just build things, they experimented with causality, with memory, with what it means to exist. We were never protecting ourselves. We were protecting time itself. "Why didn't you warn us?" asked a Zoric ambassador. The strategist gave a thin smile. "You barely listen when we speak about peace. Why would you listen about madness?" A few leaders shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "So what now?" General Threx asked from his corner. "You want us to sit and do nothing while you decide what threats matter?" The strategist tilted his head slightly. "No, we want you to prepare, because one day the lock may break. Again, and this time, we may not be enough." Elder Crixa leaned forward. "What did you give them?" she asked. "The Forerunners. You made them leave. No one does that without payment." The child looked at her and whispered, "A memory." "Who's Crixa?" asked. The child didn't answer. The room went silent. The envoys left the station. Soon after, and with them, the answers the galaxy would never truly understand. But from that moment, Earth was not feared as a threat, but trusted as a last line of defense. Still, not all accepted this new order. In the dark clouds of the shattered reach, a new player emerged. A species thought extinct for thousands of years, the Nyari. Once bioengineers of the highest level, they had vanished after their creations turned on them. Now they returned, not with fleets, but with a single ship made entirely of living matter. It moved without propulsion, feeding on ambient radiation, and it moved toward Earth. The Council called an emergency session. "We must intercept them," Chancellor Wheeler said. "We don't know what they want." "Maybe Earth should decide that," said the Illyri ambassador. "They're the ones being targeted." But Earth didn't move. No ships launched, no alerts raised. Just one message: let them arrive. The Nyari vessel stopped at the edge of the Sol system. Then it released something, a pod. Inside was a message and a corpser, perfectly preserved human body, dressed in armor not seen since the War of 10 Systems. The message said, "Return what you took, or we begin." No one understood, not even the humans. But days later, a figure walked out of Earth's underground command chamber. An old woman, skin-scarred, eyes cold. She looked at the corpse and whispered, "You kept him alive in memory, but not in truth." Then she turned to her team. "Prepare the vault. We're opening door 7. At that phrase, human satellites. Reoriented, ancient encryption protocols activated. Systems that hadn't functioned in centuries began to glow. The Council received a warning. Do not approach Earth, not during vault operations. General Threx ignored it. "They're hiding something," he said. "We have to know what's inside that vault." He sent a stealth drone into Sol space. It vanished before crossing the asteroid belt. In its place came a message. Some doors close for your safety, others for ours. This one is both. Finally, on the 5th day, the vault opened, and something rose above Earth's surface, not a ship, not a weapon, but a memory engine. It projected hundreds of moments from humanity's lost wars. Battles where enemies had no faces. Wars that changed time, broke gravity, erased cities from existence. And were never recorded in galactic history. The Council watched in horror. Elder Crixa whispered, "You didn't survive history. You erased it to protect others." The human general who controlled the vault replied, "We buried it. So you could sleep. But why show us now?" Crixa asked. "Because the past has returned," he said, "and we need your eyes now, not your weapons, your wisdom." In response, the Talari sent their best historians to Earth. The Ilri offered quantum monks trained to see time as emotion. Even the Zorik offered help, though silently. For the first time, species who once feared Earth now walked its soil not as enemies, but as students. On the edge of the galaxy, something shifted again. A new rift appeared, darker than before. A message leaked through not words, but a feeling. Rage, hunger, regret. Earth deployed only one ship. Not a dreadnought, not a fleet. A small scout vessel, old and quiet, piloted by a human called Halem. He had no rank, no title, but the council watched his departure closely. "Why send one man?" Viller asked. "Because he's enough," said the Ilari. On board, Halem recorded a message before crossing the rift. "If I return, the lock holds. If I don't, prepare." And then he vanished into the dark. Weeks passed. No word, no signal, just silence, until one night, every screen in the council chambers flickered to life. Halem's face appeared, bruised, tired, smiling. "It's done," he said. "The past won't break through. Not yet." Then he looked straight into the camera and added, "But next time, it won't be memory. We lose. It'll be mercy." The feed ended. Across the stars, no one slept well that night. The galaxy now knew what Earth really was. Not a power, not a threat, not a monster. A wall, a boundary line drawn in blood and silence. A reminder that peace wasn't the absence of war. It was the result of someone choosing not to end everything. And humanity had made that choice. Again, for now. After Halem returned from the rift, Earth went quiet again. But this time, it wasn't the same silence as before. It was deeper, heavier, as if something had been left behind on the other side of that darkness. Across the galaxy, governments kept their eyes on Sol, watching for signs, for movement, for any hint that something worse was coming. Yet Earth said nothing. It simply resumed its work-healing machines back online, silent drones back in orbit, patrol ships quietly shifting through old war routes. But those who had seen Halem's final transmission knew something had changed. On Talari Prime, Elder Crixa stood before her people. "Humanity hasn't become more dangerous," she said. "They've become more tired." The crowd didn't understand. "Tired of what?" someone asked. Crixa answered softly, "Of holding back." Meanwhile, Earth summoned a rare gathering, a shadow conclave, known only to the oldest leaders. 12 human minds from different disciplines met in a sealed space above the moon. There, in darkness, they reviewed the latest report from the vault. The data was clear. The rift had shifted. A part of it had moved. Not closer, but wider. More unstable. "We didn't seal it," said the diplomat. "We delayed it." The strategist nodded. Halem slowed the burn. He didn't stop the fire. Then the historian, a woman with a voice like sandpaper, said something that froze the room. "The Forerunners are waking others, not from our galaxy, from outside." On Arcos Prime, the council was also restless. A young officer burst into the chamber, waving a data slate. "You need to see this," he told the delegates. "We've picked up unknown movement at the galactic edge mass of objects, heading inward. No known configuration, no response to contact." General Threx stood quickly. "Could it be human?" The officer shook his head. "We don't think so." Elder Crixa closed her eyes and said, "Then it's worse." A day later, Earth sent a message not to the Council, but to every civilian system across the galaxy. The message was short, a voice calm, direct, human. "This is not a test. This is not a threat. This is a preparation. If you can leave your world, be ready. If you can fight, be trained. If you cannot do either, find those who can protect you. Something is coming that doesn't speak, doesn't trade, doesn't feel, and it doesn't stop." Panic spread, but not wildly. This time, the galaxy listened, because this time they remembered the silence. The Council asked Earth for more information. A rare video call was arranged. The human representative was a man with one eye, missing 2 fingers, and a scar down his jaw. "My name is Rain Varen," he said. "I've fought in 17 wars you'll never read about. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to tell you the truth." "What truth?" Veeler asked. Rain leaned forward. "You think we're strong. You think we're predators. You're wrong. We're survivors. We don't enjoy war. We just got good at it because we had to. And what's coming? We barely beat it last time, and back then, we were desperate. Now, we have something to lose. Why not tell us earlier? Asked the Illyri ambassador. Because we didn't. Want you to live in fear, Rain replied. But now fear might save you. He tapped a control pad, and dozens of images appeared. Dark ships shaped like bone, shadows with glowing cores, cities crumbling without attack. We call them the Hollow Ones. They don't kill for territory. They harvest memory, identity. They erase civilizations, not with weapons, but with forgetfulness. They leave nothing, not even stories. Are you sure they're returning? Asked Crixa. Rain nodded. They're already here. We found their scouts in the void. There, watching us, they're waiting. The council chamber fell into a heavy silence. Then came a voice from the backlow, guttural, mechanical, an old warrior from the Ashkari swarm, long silent since their shame. Then we stand with you. Because if they erase memory, we will become the scream that survives. Earth didn't respond with thanks, only action. The next day, 10 massive constructs began forming in orbit over Mars, not ships. Arcs designed not for war, but for survival. The old lines between human and alien blurred. On Earth, alien children played with human ones in gravity domes. Telari scientists shared their ancient depenergy cores. The Zorak finally sent their code breakers. Even the smugglers and pirates offered help, not because they believed in unity, but because they believed in survival. On the Illyri homeworld, a priestess lit an old flame once used only during extinction-level events. This, she said, is the last fire before darkness. Still, some powers resisted. The Malari Dominion refused to cooperate. They sent probes to spy on Earth's defenses. One probe reached low Earth orbit. It was instantly captured and returned completely intact. But inside was a message written in Malari language. You are not our enemy. Do not become our burden. On the far moon of Istra, a minor race called the Brelni gathered their fleet, preparing to escape the galaxy. They believed Earth would lose. They believed the Hollow Ones were the real apex. But just before their engines fired, a human ship arrived. Small, silent, the Brelni commander demanded it leave. Instead, the human captain responded calmly, You won't make it. Not fast enough, not far enough. But if you help us now, you won't have to run. What makes you so sure? The Brelni asked. The human's face appeared on the screen. He was smiling, not cruelly, just quietly, because this time we're not alone. The Brelni stayed. Others followed. The galaxy, for the first time, in its ancient life, began to prepare not as divided empires, but as one. On Earth, a new beacon was activated, Project Gauntlet. It sent out a pulse not of fear, but of unity. Every race that answered received data, blueprints, plans, not for weapons, for resistance, for survival. And for something more, a combined memory archive coded to survive anything, even erasure. Elder Crixa was the first to record her voice. In it, she said, If you find this, then someone survived. And if that someone is human, remember this, you were feared, then respected, then followed, and now remembered. Rain Varen stood with his team on the edge of the Mars platform, watching the construction below. One of the younger officers beside him asked, Do you think we'll win this time? Rain didn't look away from the stars. Winning doesn't mean surviving. Winning means making sure the story outlives us. Then came the message. Oh. Channels opened. A single word appeared in every language, on every screen, in every mind. Begin. The Hollow Ones had arrived. When the word begin echoed across the galaxy, nothing happened for the first 5 minutes. No ships, no weapons, no alarms. Just silence. Then came the cold. Not physical cold, but a mental one. Communication satellites flickered. AI minds froze mid-thought. People forgot things small at first, then larger. A captain forgot the names of his crew. A child forgot their homeworld. On the Telleri moon of Briska, an entire village forgot it ever existed. Buildings stood, power worked, but no one remembered building them. That's when everyone knew the Hollow Ones weren't attacking planets, they were deleting them from memory. On Earth, sirens did not blare. Instead, a calm voice repeated on every speaker. Memory protocols active. Secure anchors. maintain identity. Do not trust silence. In orbit, human command ships activated Mindshield's experimental tech developed decades ago, but never tested. The Council had laughed at it once. Weapons for ghosts, they called it. But now, they begged for access. Earth shared the tech. Freely, no one fights alone, said Commander Rain Varen. The first wave hit the outer sectors. A Zoric fleet guarding a mining colony vanished mid-transmission. Not exploded, just gone, with only fragments of logs remaining. In one recording, a pilot screamed, "They're inside my thoughts, they're changing my memories." Then Static, the Illyri, responded first. They had trained their priests to hold memory through emotion. Thousands gathered in memory temples, lighting internal beacons within their minds. It worked for a time. Then the Hollow Ones adapted. They began mimicking thoughts. A Talari officer stared at her commander in horror. "You said we should retreat," she cried. "I never said that," he replied. "You did." "I remember." "It," she shouted. But both were wrong. Neither of them said anything. The words were planted. Earth countered fast. They deployed human recaller specialists trained to memorize and restore erased data using pure cognition and bio-backups. One recaller, named Jonas, boarded a crippled Ashkari vessel where the crew had forgotten what air was. They stood gasping. In a sealed room, panicking without knowing why, Jonas entered, activated a neural pulse, and whispered, "Remember, oxygen." Their eyes cleared, and they collapsed in relief. Jonas didn't smile. He simply turned and said, "Sector secure." On Arcos Prime, the Council broke protocol and allowed human command into the central war room. Elder Crixa stood at the holomap, her voice trembling. "They're not targeting cities anymore. They're targeting our history, our maps." "Are shifting," said the Illyri ambassador. "Entire systems are disappearing from records like they were never charted." Rain Varen activated a personal projection. "This is the last flame protocol," he said. "It's designed to anchor identity through collective storytelling. If one voice fails, another will remember. If one system forgets, another will. Speak. Keep talking. Keep telling each other who you are. You're using stories as weapons." Chancellor Wheeler asked. "We always did," Rain replied. "You just called them culture." At the edge of the galaxy, humanity launched Project Emberfall, a fleet of uncrewed ships, each carrying a cultural time capsule launched into deep space. If Earth fell, the memory of its people wouldn't. Each capsule included not just facts, but music, paintings, laughter, tears, not just what humans were, but who they were. Meanwhile, the Hollow Ones reached the first core world-driven star, the Defense. Grid activated, 50 ships stood in defense. All vanished. Not destroyed, forgotten, Earth responded. Not with dreadnoughts, but with echo teams. Small squads of elite memory warriors trained to fight in mindspace. Led by Captain Nara Keen, they entered the void where Draven's memory had once been. Inside, the rules were wrong colors, bled into each other. Gravity changed direction. Time ran sideways. One soldier screamed when he saw his mother waiting in the shadows. His mother had died 20 years ago. Nara placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "She's not real. You are." The illusion faded. The squad moved forward, deeper. In the center of the void, they found the hollows core-shaped like a child's drawing of a star. Broken lines, flickering edges, Nara reached for it. Not with a weapon, but with a story. She told it about a boy who survived a storm because he remembered his father's voice. She spoke the memory into the light. And the light cracked. The squad was pulled back instantly. Draven's star returned. No signs of damage, no signs of war. Just a brief whisper in the air. "We are not your enemy. We are what you forget." The Council tried to understand. "They don't destroy," Elder Crixa said. "They erase because they believe memory is weakness." "No, Nara," Keen said, standing in the war room now. "They erase because they're afraid of what memory becomes, which is asked Wheelerhope," she answered. Across dozens of worlds, memory temples rose overnight. Species who never shared their pasts before now told each other their stories. Enemies traded memories. Old grudges were healed. Just to keep history alive, children became the guardians of names. Artists became generals. Poets became historians. A strange, quiet courage spread. The galaxy was remembering itself. The hollow ones began to slow. Their reach thinned. For every world they tried to erase, another stood up and shouted its name into the stars. "We are here," they cried. "We lived, but the war wasn't over." The hollow ones sent one final message. Not through words, but through loss. Earth's moon went dark. No explosions, no beams, just silence. The beacon was gone. "It's not the beacon," whispered Rain. "It's what was under it." The vault beneath the moon, the oldest storage of human thought, was gone. Not just the files, the memory of it. Humans stood, staring at the night sky, confused. "Wasn't there something up there?" someone asked. "But I don't remember," said another. "But one did. A child. The same girl who once stood at Arcos Prime. She sat under the stars and whispered, 'The vault.' It was called the vault." "How do you remember?" Narrated asked her. The child looked up with tears in her eyes. "Because my father worked there, and I loved him, and I don't forget who I love." The next morning, Earth reactivated its last failsafe, the soul archives. Hidden in human DNA, encoded memories began unlocking in select people flashbacks of old wars. Old laughter, pain, and peace. Humanity had done the impossible. They didn't store memory in machines anymore. They became it on the battlefield. Near the rift, as hollow fleets approached, human ships broadcast stories millions at once. Songs, jokes, final words of dying soldiers, whispered dreams of long-lost lovers. The hollow ones began to falter. For the first time, they hesitated. One turned and broke formation. Another flickered and dissolved into light. Earth pressed forward, not with force, but with truth. "We remember." And remembering became the sharpest weapon in the stars. The moment humanity declared, "We remember," something in the hollow ones broke. Not shattered, not destroyed, just paused. Their massive bone ships stopped mid-flight. Their shifting dark energy began to pulse slower, and their voices, those terrifying echoes of forgotten names, went silent. On the edge of the rift, as Earth's memory fleets held their ground, something impossible happened. A hollow vessel turned around. It didn't vanish, it didn't attack. It just drifted, as if confused. Captain Narrated stared at the screen. "From her bridge, they're stalling," she said. "They're trying to process something." "Like what?" asked her second-in-command, a former Zoric war tactician. "Like loss," she replied. "We just reminded them of something. They forgot." Meanwhile, on the council station Arcos Prime, Elder Crixa addressed a full chamber. "The hollow ones are not just invaders. They are us without memory, without meaning. They're what happens when a civilization forgets who it was until. All that's left is hunger. Then we need to give them something to remember," said the Ilari ambassador. That became the turning point. Earth, the Talari, the Ilari, even the once proud Zoric and Ashkari joined together in a new plan operation Pulsefire. The mission was no longer to destroy the hollow ones, it was to remind them. Massive ships were reconfigured to become memory projectors. Cultures once divided began combining their greatest stories into powerful emotional waves. But before the plan could launch, a hollow breach opened above a minor colony called Tessavi. Within seconds, the entire population forgot why they were there. A family stood inside their home, confused. "Who are you?" the father asked. The mother looked down at her children. I don't know. Are these our kids?" the children cried, sensing something wrong. On Earth, the recallers moved instantly. Jonas, the recaller who once restored air-breathing knowledge, arrived in less than an hour. "You chose to live here." The woman's eyes widened. Tears ran down her face. I remember him." Behind Jonas, 100 recallers followed, rebuilding memory block by block. It worked barely. Earth knew this couldn't go on forever. Back in orbit, the Pulsefire fleet launched. Captain Narrated stood before her crew. "We're not just fighting shadows," she said. "We're fighting forgetfulness. Our job isn't to kill, it's to speak loudly, proudly, for everyone who can't anymore." The first memory lance fired from a ship named the Soul Voice. It struck a hollow ship head-on. For a second, nothing happened. Then the hollow vessel began to ripple. Strange lights blinked across its surface, and a voice, small, fragile, ancient, through the static, "I remember stars. I remember warmth. I remember then silence. The hollow ship collapsed into dust, not from damage, but from remembering what it used to be. That was a soul, said Nara quietly. A broken one set free. The Pulsefire fleet continued. Each lance built from shared memories. The laughter of children, the sound of oceans, the moment someone held a dying friend's hand. Each memory cut through the hollow ones like light through shadow, but not all. Ships reacted the same. Some resisted, others retaliated. A large hollow dreadform slammed into a Talari ship, erasing its captain mid-command. The rest of the crew screamed, but before they could flee, a memory lance struck the hollow beast. It didn't die, but it recoiled, shaking like it had touched fire, but not with hate, with truth. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Vault team made a decision. They would open the Sol Laka failsafe buried deep inside the planet's crust, older than the Council itself. It was said to contain humanity's purest, most painful memory, extinction. Commander Rain Varen protested, "If we use that, we show them how close we came to disappearing." "Exactly," replied the historian. "That's what they need to feel, the fear, the pain, the rebirth." The Soul Lock was opened. It released not energy, but a story. One final memory, transmitted galaxy-wide. The message was simple, a child's voice, shaking, saying, "I was the last one, I was alone. But I remembered my mother's song, so I sang it." And someone came. Billions heard it. Even the hollow ones, especially them, their movements slowed, their energy faded. Some began to drift apart, as if unsure of their own purpose. One hollow fragment drifted into a council ship, not attacking but humming. "It's repeating the song," said an officer. "It's trying to remember." On Arcos Prime, the council held a final vote. Not for war, for forgiveness. "If they surrender," said Elder Crixa, "do we accept them?" "They're not people," said Velor. "They were." "That's enough," she replied. Earth sent out a final call. "We are here, we are awake. You can be too then." Silence, long, heavy. And finally, one hollow ship approached. Slowly, not cloaked in shadow, not made of bone. It had changed its shape, now a blend of alien and human design. A voice came from it, not in sound, but in thought. "We were nothing, but now we are pieces." "Can we stay?" Captain Narakeen answered softly. "Yes, as long as you remember." And with that, the war ended. Not with an explosion, not with surrender, but with remembrance. The hollow ones didn't vanish. They became something else. Students, listeners, silent, careful travelers. Earth watched them go, not as monsters, but as lost children finally finding their names. Across the galaxy, memory became the new weapon. And humanity once feared, once hated, once worshipped was now known not as conquerors, not as predators, but as keepers. Of truth, of history, of every soul too broken to speak for itself. And for the first time, the galaxy breathed not in fear, but in peace-deep, cautious peace held together by memory. The war ended not with weapons, but with word stories, memories, names shouted into the dark until the dark answered back. The hollow ones, once feared as soul-devouring shadows, now drifted peacefully between stars. They didn't speak often, but when they did, it was in broken sentences and small questions like, "What does hope taste like?" Or, "Why do you bury the dead?" They were learning how to be the galaxy. For the first time in living memory, had no active wars, no major threats, but peace did not mean stillness. It meant rebuilding, remembering, and deciding. What came next? On Earth, a new council had formed not just humans, but every race that stood together during the Memory War. They called themselves the Continuum. Their mission was not defense, but preservation, not borders, but bridges. Commander Rain Varen, scarred and older, now served as Earth's voice. During the Continuum's first gathering, he stood and spoke to all. The war showed us what we forgot. Not just who we were, but why we mattered. Now we decide what memory we give to the stars. A young Brelny delegate raised her hand, and, "What if we forget again?" Rain smiled softly. "Then we teach again. That's what we do now." Across the stars, vaults were rebuilt, not just for data, but for culture. On Telleri Prime, musicians from 5 species played together. recording songs designed not to entertain, but to remember emotions that couldn't be spoken. On Illyri worlds, temples of silence were raised where people could go and listen, not 2 words, but 2 echoes of lives lost and saved. Earth offered open skies to everyone. No borders, no visa gates, just landing paths and soft lights saying, "You are welcome." But not all was perfect. In the shadows of the past, fear still lingered. On a distant asteroid base, an old general named Kasser watched the Hollow Ones moving through deep space and muttered, "We let them live. We let the monsters learn." His aide replied, "They're not monsters anymore." Kasser shook his head. "They are what they choose to be next, and we're betting everything on hope." On Arcos Prime, Elder Crixa met with the last surviving original Zorak tactician. "Why did they change?" she asked. He replied, "Because we showed them we could survive without hate, and that scared them." Crixa nodded. Maybe the real weapon was never war. Maybe it was forgiveness, and far beyond even the Hollow Ones, something listened, something older, something that had stayed silent during the war, not out of weakness, but out of boredom. It stirred. Now, sensing the shift in the galaxy, on a barren world long thought dead, ancient machines began to pulse. Not Forerunner, not Hollow, something else, something watching. On Earth, the vault alarms didn't go off. But one child now, a teenager, woke up gasping. The same girl who once spoke to the council, she ran to her guardian, a former recaller, named Jonas. "They're awake," she whispered. Jonas stared into her eyes. "Not the Hollow. No," she said. "Something." Before even them, Earth responded immediately. A secret team was reactivated due at Emberfall, the same name once used for memory capsules. This time, the mission was deeper. To go where even time had broken, Nara Keen was called in from retirement. She arrived in silence, dressed in a worn black coat, carrying the only weapon ever recovered from the Hollow One's thought blade, sharp only to lies. Jonas joined her, older now, but still calm. "Why us?" he asked. Rain, Varen watching from the shadows, answered, "Because you remember what others won't." The team launched in a small vessel named the Testament. Its destination, Null Sector, where even light refused to go. As they passed beyond the last known stars, the galaxy held its breath. Days turned to weeks. The ship sent fragments of data whispers, of architecture too old to name, signals too slow to hear. Then silence. Then a voice. It wasn't human. It wasn't hollow. It was awareness. And it asked one question. "Do you remember who made you?" On Earth, vault systems crashed. Archive lights dimmed. All memory feeds froze. Only one message repeated. The first ones asked for an answer. Across the galaxy, panic rose again. Were these gods? Were these architects, or something worse? On board the Testament, Nara Keen stared at the pulsing symbol in front of her. "What do we say?" Jonas whispered. Nara closed her eyes and said, "The truth." She stood tall and spoke. "We remember pain. We remember love. We remember what it means to fall and rise again. We were made, maybe, but what we are now, we chose it." The light paused, then pulsed, then split into thousands of threads each, one showing a different memory from Earth. The birth of a child, a soldier refusing to fire, a song sung after a loss. The voice returned, now softer. "Then you are not what we feared. You are what we hoped." The ship returned 1 week later. No damage, no trauma, just silence and peace. And one more thing, a gift. A crystal embedded with what Earth scientists later called origin memory, the code of the first civilization. Not technology, not power. Understanding the continuum decided what to do with it. They built a garden on the moon where people from every race could visit. The crystal floated in the center, humming softly. Not guarded, not locked, just remembered. "So what now?" asked the young Brelny again at the next assembly. Now Rain said, "We tell the stars who we are, not as survivors, but as teachers, as keepers, as family." And so it began a galaxy not ruled by fear, but by stories. Children of all species grew up learning not just their own histories, but each other's. Even the Hollow Ones sent representatives who spoke slowly, always beginning with, "Long ago, we forgot." But now we listen. And Earth. Earth became a place of quiet strength. No longer feared, no longer hiding, just standing tall, always ready not to fight, but to remind that peace isn't the end of war. It's the beginning of something harder. Trust, forgiveness, memory in a quiet moment. The girl who remembered the vault sat beneath the stars and whispered a name into the dark. The stars answered back. She smiled, because in this galaxy, now and forever, no one was forgotten.